Hello everyone, this is Aruna Prasad. In this video, I'm going to talk about one of the most searched topics on the internet, which is intermittent fasting. A lot of you have also been messaging me and requesting me to do a video on the same to give you my take on intermittent fasting and does it really promise all the benefits that it claims and a lot of other things. This is going to be a long video, so hang in there. At the end of the video, I'll surely be giving you my review on the same. So because it's going to be a long video, I have just divided this into 5 parts. Firstly, we'll talk about intermittent fasting. Then what does the research papers have to say on this? Then the common philosophy or the concept and my take on that. What are the potential side effects of following intermittent fasting? And finally, the conclusion. So let's get started. Firstly, let's understand what is intermittent fasting. It's basically giving your body intermittent energy. So which means, to put it in a very simple way, they claim that you got to fast for certain hours and you can eat only in certain hours of the day. So that's called the fasting window and the eating window. So this can vary. It could be like 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours of eating window, or 12 and 12, or 14 and 10, etc. So this is basically, the concept is that if you actually fast, then your insulin levels go down. So the moment the blood insulin levels go down, then the accumulation of fat gets altered. You tend to utilize your stored nutrients better. It also leads to what is called the ketosis, which is utilization of stored fat as a source of energy. So this is what intermittent fasting is all about. Now, what are the common mistakes that people do when they're following intermittent fasting is that a lot of us, especially the ones who need their cup of coffee or tea on waking up to get their day going, would also still do something safer, say a black coffee or a black tea or a green tea, and they think that it's completely okay to do that. So if you're doing that, then that's one of the biggest mistakes you're doing when you're on an intermittent fasting. Because if you're fasting and feeding your system with a lot of such acidic beverages, then you're not really doing anything great to your body. Secondly, a lot of people also tend to skip their workouts because they're anyway fasting. They're going to get all the benefits out of fasting. So they probably, either reduce their workouts or probably even not really indulge in any sort of workouts which could actually have a lot of potential side effects. We'll talk about all of this a little later in detail. Now let's get started with what does the research papers have to say on obesity, diabetes and cardiovascular health with respect to intermittent fasting. So to begin with obesity, what the research says is that intermittent fasting or calorie restricted diet in general shows the same amount of weight loss over a period of 6 months. So that leaves us with a thought that, is intermittent fasting really worth giving it a try? If you're actually more mindful of what you're eating, you could still get all the benefits of weight loss by following a calorie restricted diet and not really just focus on intermittent fasting. The second one, on cardiovascular health. So cardiovascular health, the research papers published in the New England Journal of Medicine said that there was some improvement in the cardiovascular health initially when people started doing intermittent fasting. But as they got back to their usual diets, the normal diets that they were following before doing intermittent fasting, so once they got back to that, there wasn't any much benefit that they saw in the cardiovascular health, and the benefits actually got dissipated. So that leaves us with the thought that intermittent fasting is not really sustainable. So if you have to see any major change in your overall health, then you've got to probably do it for the rest of your life. Are you really in for it or not? You probably have to give it a thought. The third one being diabetes. The problem with diabetes more than high blood sugar levels is the low blood sugar episodes. So when you have low blood sugar levels, you probably black out, you tend to profusely sweats and so on. So if you are doing intermittent fasting, being a diabetic and not told your healthcare provider or got your hypoglycemic drugs or insulin levels adjusted accordingly, then there could be some really potential side effects of following this when you get into low blood sugar episodes. So guys, please do not try this out, especially if you're a diabetic for a very long time. Let's talk about some concepts of intermittent fasting and how you can actually adapt these without having to do intermittent fasting. So firstly, when you're doing intermittent fasting, say you're eating only for about 8 hours or so, what happens is you're naturally restricting your overall consumption to about 60 to 70% of what you would generally be eating. If you are actually being more mindful, listening to your body signals and stopping when your body is full, you could still achieve this without having to fast for about 16 hours or only eat for about 8 hours. So remember this, if you're able to be more mindful, eat right and bring in the right lifestyle modification, you can still achieve that calorie restriction, what people commonly talk about, without having to do intermittent fasting. Secondly, what happens in intermittent fasting, if you say for example have had your last meal by around 7 or 8 in the evening and you're somebody who sleeps by around 11 or 12 in the night, then you have given more than 3 to 4 hours of gap between your last meal and your bedtime. You definitely have to do this even when you're eating normally. That is when you have given enough time for your body to detox and metabolize and probably rejuvenate and repair. So you don't really only have to get into intermittent fasting to do this, to give this gap. The other problem is when people are on a normal diet, they probably eat very early or not eat or skip a meal. And then what they do is they start looking out for some snack by around 11 or 12 or later in the night, which is what is actually leading to weight gain, or you're not able to lose weight because of that. So if you can take this concept of intermittent fasting, avoid eating anything after you have had your last meal, or be at least more mindful in your choices. If you're up late in the night, you could still reap the same benefits. Now, a lot of people say, you know what, Aruna, I want to do intermittent fasting because, I don't have to think about food all the time. When I'm fasting for those 16 hours, I really don't have to think about food, is what they say, and that's why I want to do this. I would always ask them, if you have been thinking about food all the time, then probably you're doing it wrong totally. Because if you are eating what is more locally produced or what you're generally used to eating or something that's very simple and homemade, you don't really have to think so much about food. It's just a part of your life. Only if you're probably bending backwards to follow something, bring in all the exotic ingredients and all, only then you would probably be thinking of the food all the time. And if you're doing intermittent fasting and still following something like this, intermittent fasting will not take away that stress from the stress that you share about food. So that cannot actually help. The next thing, what happens is, if you are somebody who's constantly looking at the clock to break your fast because you're doing intermittent fasting, then it really doesn't help, guys, because then the stress about food is not taken care of, and even the relationship, probably the wrong relationship you share with food, is also not addressed. So whether you're doing intermittent fasting or any other latest trending diets, you may still not lose weight if we do not get into the crux of the relationship that you share with the food. So then it really doesn't help. Now, another concept, if you are so great at doing intermittent fasting, say fast for about 16 hours and eat only during 8 hours and plan everything well, then you don't really need intermittent fasting for weight loss. If you just get into a proper lifestyle modification, you can still lose weight, stay fit, stay active, stay healthier as well, because anyway you are great at planning, you're very disciplined. It's just some small tweaks and modifications that you need to bring in. So now let's move on to what are the probable potential side effects of intermittent fasting. The first one being nutritional deficiencies. I always keep telling my clients, guys, listen to your body signals. If you're having sugar craving, or if you're, say, having low energy, if you're not waking up fresh, if you're having a lot of recovery issues and all, there could be some sort of an underlying nutritional deficiencies. So if that is not addressed and you get into intermittent fasting because you want to lose weight, this is some sort of a quick fix that you feel would actually help you reach your weight loss goal, then you're further worsening the condition of the nutritional deficiency. Reason, you only have about 8 or 10 hours of window, and if you're somebody who cannot really eat bigger portion or eat a lot of varieties, then what happens, you're actually compromising on the food groups. The most common food group that gets compromised is actually fruits. People say, you know what, 12 o'clock I ate lunch, 4, 5 o'clock I had my tea, and then now by around 7 o'clock I'm eating my dinner. Where is the time for me to have fruits or nuts or all of those? So if you start compromising on the essential food groups, then that sure shot leads to nutritional deficiencies. So this is one of the major side effects of following intermittent fasting. The next probable side effect is that it doesn't have any set protocol. Some say fast on alternate days, some say fast only twice a week. So it can actually differ from person to person. Guys, let's understand, anything to do with human body cannot be generalized. So in which case, how do you know when should you be fasting, or how long should you be fasting for, or how many times should you be doing all of this? And the consequence of this is that it can actually get addictive after a point in time. People may start thinking that the more I fast, the more weight loss I can probably see. But remember the nutritional deficiencies it can cause, which can be very, very harmful. Another thing with intermittent fasting is that how do you manage a clinical symptom? A lot of people do experience hangry, my favorite hunger and anger. It could be acidity, gastric, it could be headache, it could be just in general low energy or enthusiasm to do their normal activities. So how do you manage all of this? Because you're allowed to eat only during 8 hours. So if you probably start getting all these symptoms by around 12 or 13 hours of fasting, then how do you get through for another 3 to 4 hours? And do you think you would be able to manage all of these symptoms on a daily basis? Then isn't that too much of a stress on the body? So now this leads to me asking a couple of unanswered questions that I was really not able to figure out, which is, this is something so very new that we do not have enough of studies to say that this is very beneficial or that this is a sure shot way to improve our health. So does that mean that this is just a rebranding for another trending diet? That's one of my, that's the question that really was not answered. So even when I talk to people, I don't really get an answer to all of these. Next, my biggest problem is that if you're doing intermittent fasting and probably, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of not having the right relationship with the food, and it's leading to a lot of stress in the body. So we all know that the moment the stress levels go up in the body, we tend to store more cortisol, which is the fat storing hormone. So what it does is it also makes you binge a lot, eat more frequently, and probably also lead to a lot of sugar or food craving in general. So if intermittent fasting is leading to a lot of food craving, then isn't fasting very redundant? Also, what happens is a lot of influencers believe that, in those 8 or 10 hours of eating window, you can actually eat anything. So if you are actually overeating, not following the 60 to 70% of your overall intake when you're fasting, then isn't fasting again redundant there? Does it really give you all the benefits that it claims? So this needs a lot more of research, a lot more of long-term studies for us to say that yes, you know what, intermittent fasting is the way forward. So now let me just conclude on what I would want to say. Even though we have research papers which say that there are numerous benefits that intermittent fasting offers, these are mostly done either on animals or probably these are also short-term studies. And so we definitely have to have some long-term studies done on human beings to say that, you know what, probably like intermittent fasting becomes like the one-stop solution for all the metabolic diseases. Secondly, we need to definitely focus on whether it's intermittent fasting or not. We definitely have to focus on lifestyle modification, which means you're getting adequate sleep, you're exercising regularly, you're eating simple foods, a lot of variety, home cooked meal. You're also training your mind, staying a lot more positive that way. So all of these will definitely give you all the benefits that any intermittent fasting or any other diet trends would actually promise you of. And also to remember, like I said, all the studies say that calorie restriction is what will help us improve our diabetes levels, to even aid in weight loss or improve the cardiovascular health. Now, what is the calorie restriction that we need to be focusing on? Anything that comes out of a packet or which is processed. The moment you start eating simple home cooked meals, you definitely would not be overeating there would definitely be exceptions, but in general, there cannot be any sort of overeating there, or any triggers, stress triggers, which could actually aggravate your metabolic condition. Now, so who should be doing intermittent fasting? If your doctor or surgeon has specifically told you to be on fasting for a certain surgery, or if there is any sort of traumatic organ injuries, then only then you would have to be on one, which will be recommended by your doctor. Who should definitely not be doing intermittent fasting? If you're under 18, if you're pregnant, or if you have any sort of medical condition, diabetes to any other medical condition, kindly refrain yourself from doing this. Just to end this, if you're somebody who has already been following a very healthy lifestyle, well planned exercise, food, and good sleep, listening to your body signal, not eating out or eating out of a packet, etc., and would just want to push your envelope and probably challenge your mind further doing intermittent fasting, you could definitely give this a try to probably understand how much the human brain and the body can endure. If you have liked this video, do subscribe to my channel and kindly share this video with your family and friends. Thank you so much.